All right, beauties and gents. We are back with Rise of the Kings podcast, episode 9. Your boy Tony Wilson clocking in. I have a good friend of mine who I've known for several years who just has a phenomenal story that we're going to get into. Miss Selene, she was a part of our postpartum podcast like weeks back. But now we're going to get in depth with her. Selene, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Selene. I went to college with Tony at Hamline University in Minnesota. I am currently in banking in a leadership role. I'm an essential worker, but over the years, the things that I'm passionate about have kind of taken a back seat a little bit to the daily grind and raising a family and things of that nature. So I'm really excited to be able to be here and have these conversations with Tony and hopefully make an impact and have someone listening that it can potentially help. So that's why I'm here today.
Well,
Thank
Selene,
you for
I want to say this. Like, you have always been somebody who has always checked me on my shit, right? Like, if
someone's got to do it, right?
no, I mean, we need that. We need that. Like, especially as men. Like, if I'm ever like spewing off some like insecure, misogynistic bullshit, you are the one who is right on that and checking me on that shit. And that's what I've always respected about you.
Well, I think that speaks to you as well because it means that I'm comfortable with you. You know, there's plenty of guys that I know or am acquainted with that I see spewing that shit all the time, and I would never say anything to them because I'm scared of their reaction, you know? So it just speaks to the fact that you're open to having a dialogue.
Yeah, and I feel like we've always had that dynamic, even though like we didn't necessarily like we weren't a part of the same like class as far as like college, but we've always had that dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Even from when, I mean, we've interacted over the years in kind of interesting situations, whether it be you were in town and we met up briefly, you know, or even down to the fact of helping me plan when I was leading a spring break trip from Hamline down to New Orleans. You were right in there with me, helping me set up events. And
that is how we met.
Yeah, is that the first time we met? I don't think so.
No, I think that's the first time we actually communicated.
Really?
I think when you were doing the Hamlin trip.
I thought that I knew you before that, and I'm gonna have to do some research.
I'm gonna Google this shit. I'm gonna Google it right now, actually. But while I'm Googling this, tell them about your work and your passions.
Okay. So like I said, work-wise, I kind of have that daily grind thing going. It's something I fell into after college, and I had kids at a young age, so I needed something with stable hours and benefits, and started out as a bank teller and then just kind of ended up making it a career. I'm not super passionate about the industry. I enjoy working with people. Customer service 4 days out of 7 is great. But overall, my passion really lies within the realm of social justice. That's what my degree is in. That's what honestly, Hamline, being a liberal arts school, kind of opened my eyes to the possibilities. I was raised in a very social justice focused family, and I'm lucky that way because most people don't have that experience. But as I went through my 4 years at Hamline, I started to realize that you can make a life out of this. You can make a career out of this. So my focus was really on women's studies, social inequities, things of that nature. And I, for a few years, had an internship at a sexual assault crisis center, worked with both people struggling with the long-term effects of being sexual abuse and sexual assault survivors and people that were in crisis. So the two responsibilities that I had during that internship were to work with people who were calling into the crisis line and needing resources, needing assistance. And then also we were on call the hours that the crisis center was closed. So from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning, if someone presented at one of the 3 main hospitals in the Twin Cities area with having been just assaulted, it was our job to go there and be with them through that whole process. Mm-hmm. So we were kind of the barrier, I guess I would say, between people who had just been raped and police interrogations, being subjected to any kind of medical procedure without their consent, those kinds of things. So I thought that's what I was going to do with my life, to be honest. I thought that's the kind of work I was going to do, and I haven't counted it out yet. I'm only 26, so I can still go back, but I got to the point in the finance world where I was making more money than you can make at a nonprofit, like point blank, period.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people end up there, unfortunately, and I'm trying to find ways to insert my passions back into my life. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted to talk with you a little more, because I felt really empowered when we talked about the postpartum depression, and I felt empowered by the response I received from people who heard it and watched it and felt connected to what I was saying and what the other women were saying. So again, thank you for providing that platform.
Well, I always feel like conflicted with the thank you for that. I mean, yes, okay, cool. But I feel conflicted with that because honestly, you're teaching me. Like, my friendship with you has taught me a lot about things that I should say, things I should think, and things I should feel. So, yes, we have this platform, but I think the way that you conduct yourself, and as far as like how strong you are and how like convicted you are about your beliefs, it really changes people's minds, even though they may not say it. Like, and me, I'm like a malleable man. Like, I really love women and I want to like make women happy, but I'm also have had a toxic background. And so it's dope to be checked sometime. Mm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So tell me more about what drove you into the aspect of like speaking on women's issues.
It started pretty young. I would say, again, just talking about my family background, I have 2 parents who have self-identified as feminists since I can remember. I'm probably their whole lives. And I was raised, I remember my parents took me to protests when I was little. Like, I was always raised to question what's handed to you. And my mom is one of the strongest women I know. I mean, she has always been a feminist. She's always been really open with me about everything, you know? So like when I lost my virginity at 15, I was going straight into her room to tell her. And that's not a relationship that, you know, a lot of daughters have with their moms. And she was also, so she was upfront with me about sexuality. She was upfront with me about what it means to be a woman in this culture, in this time. And so at a very young age, I became hyper aware of some of the things that me and my friends were being subjected to just based on who we were. I was also, my mom got me involved in, I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's a great resource as Jelly gets older. There's this magazine called New Moon. They call it the magazine for girls and their dreams. And my mom got me a subscription when I was really young, and it talks about some of those harder issues in more of a palatable way for younger girls. I think I started reading it when I was 6. But it goes all the way up to about 15 is kind of where people age out of it. But the cool part was that they were actually based out of Minnesota, and they had an editorial board that was made up of young girls that decided what went into the magazine, you know, picked the cover art, picked the stories that they were going to feature, picked, you know, all sorts of things. And I ended up being on that editorial board for 3 years, I think. And at that point, I was I was really malleable, like you said. Like I was a young girl just starting out, and learning about some of those issues that women around me were facing inherently just because they were women, as well as getting to interview these really powerful, amazing women, do book reports on, you know, female authors, things like that for this magazine. I think that's kind of where the fire started as far as what I was going to focus on as I got older. And I'll be honest, it wasn't like a straight progression into college. Like I didn't show up to school saying like, this is what I want to study. Yeah. I actually was a theater major for the first 3.5 years of college. And then like last minute, I was like, you know, this isn't for me. I'm not going to make any money doing this. Let's see what else we can find. So
I'm a bit older than you. So I literally saw that. Like I saw you go from like just chilling to like, motherfucker, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, I think that is so necessary. My wife is a strong feminist, but she does a good way of balancing being able to like have like to leave room for my masculinity, but also check me when I need to be checked. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's interesting. That's interesting that you bring that up too, because I hear that a lot. Like I've heard it from my partner. I've heard it from men that I've dated in the past, how they're surprised by that almost. Yeah. And I would say, I think over the years, the definition of feminist has gotten super twisted. Yeah. Because at its core, and I know you know this, but at its core, it is simply the belief that all genders are equal and deserve equal rights. That's straight up it. So I don't understand how everyone doesn't identify as a feminist. And, you know, people have this idea of like, they're the girls that like don't shave their armpits and hate men and want to cut people's dicks off and things like that. But like, that's not what it's about at the end of the day.
That's all patriarchy. You know what I mean? That's all that, like literally patriarchy and like men just feeling really uncomfortable because if you really look at it, we all love to be guided by a woman.
Maybe.
I think we do. We love to be guided. So actually, I want to ask this question.
Yeah.
How do you, as a strong feminist, how do you have like what was the situation with you finding your man?
Well, I think part of feminism is a beautiful, beautiful side of masculinity. I think the most amazing men that I have ever met, yourself included, at their core have incredibly feminist ideals. They're the men that respect women, that cherish women, that cherish their own ability to be soft and realize that it doesn't make them any less of a man. There's nothing inherently unmasculine about being a kind, gentle, respectful person. In fact, I think it's the most masculine thing. And you can attest to that now as a father. You know, being a father is considered one of the most masculine things you can be in society. And the definition of that, being a good father, is soft and gentle. And so I don't think that I've definitely had my share of guys that I don't know if I would use intimidated as the word, but maybe it's just kind of easier not to be
secure.
Yeah.
Insecure.
Yeah, that's fair. And I would say that for guys like that, where they do have that toxic masculinity just kind of burned into them and don't realize it, a girl like me can be seen as too much, or you know, there are easier options. And you know what, at the end of the day, if that's how you feel, then we're not meant for each other, you know.
I'll say this, like dudes have always said to me, like, when you have a daughter, you're gonna learn your patience. And you're right. Like, my daughter throws temper tantrums, and like sometimes she walks up to me and hits me, but I'm like, no, we don't do that, right? The masculinity in me wants to be like, pop her, hit her bad, but whatever. But it's like, no, sit back. She young, let her learn. Like, I grew up with only women in my life, but very toxic women. It wasn't until my wife that I realized how beautiful women are. Like, y'all got your problems, don't get me wrong. But women are so beautiful because y'all are understanding and you still can handle the fucking weight of the world without any help or asking for help, which is not okay. Which is
Yeah, I
not
was gonna
okay.
say that's not what you want to do, but
But I'm saying like a woman can like I'll bring this up right with abortion. I used to have this view on abortion. I'm like, no, I would never want a woman to have an abortion, blah 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 blah. But then my mom said to me, she says, "But you always have the option to leave."
mm-hmm,
And I'm like, "Shit, you're right."
mm-hmm.
So if she makes that decision, you got to respect it. Because I've seen women literally carry the world on their backs. And it's just beautiful. But also like for me, like when it comes to this situation, it's like with my wife being a feminist, like I want to do better. I always want to do better, right? That's why I go to therapy because I don't want my wife to carry my burdens. I don't want her to have that emotional labor.
Right.
I want her to do. I want to be able to do better for her.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's the most masculine thing you can do. Really. I mean, that's the way you're backing up your woman, that's the way you're supporting her, that's the way you're caring for her. That's the most masculine thing you can do at the end of the day. So I think you asked how it played into finding my current partner. And I guess it was interesting. So I met my husband when I had just turned 18. Um he was 22 at the time and he already had a daughter. So we were at two completely different places in our lives. I was
I
still very
literally remember this. I literally remember this.
yeah.
I was like, "You're a stepmom," and you said to me, "You said, no, I'm not. No, I'm not."
Yeah, yeah. I pushed back against that really hard for a long time. It was scary. I have a 16-year age difference with my stepdaughter. So, especially at such a young age, I was still just a kid. But we came from very different places, and I think it helped because we were in completely different places in our lives. I was in school, he was not. He was much older, he was raising a child. I was going out partying on the weekend, like still living the college life, hookup culture, all that.
Mhm.
And I think it it enabled us to meet in the middle on so many different levels that when it came down to, I mean, he was raised in a very conservative family. He's from Wisconsin, and the feminist stuff, the social justice stuff. I mean, he's a white guy from the Midwest, and he was like never really exposed to any of it. So he always talks about how coming into my Hamlin bubble, he got to meet, like he met different types of people for the first time and was hearing these different experiences for the first time. And he definitely had some problematic shit to work through. But we had those conversations, and I was in the middle of school, so I had all these great resources to help me have these conversations. And we just grew together, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, we came from a place where we were literally opposite end of the spectrum on almost every issue you can think of. And I would say that we're pretty much aligned on everything now. But I mean, it's almost 9 years later, so it wasn't like, you know.
You got to indoctrinate them.
I've been working on it.
I mean, I feel like that's the same story with me and my wife. Like, the reason why my wife and I are so successful in our relationship, and I hate to say the word successful, but I mean, that's just the word I can think of. Um, I was not ready for a relationship when I met her
Mhm.
at all. Like, I was like, no, I'm trying to be a rapper. I'm trying to do this music. I got this basement apartment that's dirty as fuck. And my wife would literally come over and just sit and read a book. And then would be like, oh, don't say this line, say that line. Do this, say that. Like, and I went to Europe, so I went to London and then I went to Paris and to perform. And she like booked a ticket and met me in Paris. And like I just was like, it was in Paris that like I literally looked at her and I said, Bisou, because bisou is a kiss in French. I said, this is gonna be the woman I marry.
Yeah.
It's like it just if you're gonna sit with me in a dirty ass apartment in a basement while I'm trying to become a rapper.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I remember when you first, like, I think it was when you first posted about her. I was like, well, that was out of left field, you know? But you guys, it seems like you both push each other to be better. And
Yeah.
it's been cool to be able to watch that even just from a distance. So,
And for me, like I've never seen a healthy, happy relationship. I grew up in a single parent home. My mom never dated somebody for long term, so I never seen that. And it's like honestly to see that like the things that we go through when we beefing and battling and then we get through it and then we learn like different mechanisms to like not have those battles go on, it feels really like an accomplishment.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it makes you feel closer rather than pushed further apart with the conflict. I agree with that for sure.
Exactly, exactly.